Okay, so here's something I wanted to show also. This is the 151st Air Refueling Wing. They are also part of that red flag 23-3, Uniting U.S. Armed Forces. This was published August 11th. They're announcing that it has come to a close for more than 2,000 military units that ran to August 4th. We know that they were already still doing their exercises on the 8th, the day of Maui. But they say here, Utah, the sweet smell of pineapple, in the air, the snap of the fire. This is the unit, their cooking unit, I guess. They're cooking. So see on either end, on this left side here, and then over here on the right side, our right, the red-hatted chefs. So in the middle here, we have actually 19. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 people. What a convenient number. Again, 19 people in the middle, but they're all very proud of their cooking as they talk about the sweet smell of pineapple. Don't you think, now these guys are in Utah, don't you think that pineapple is more something associated with like Hawaii? And the snap of the fire. So looking at this Maui Mountain Dew, Maui Burst, dew with a blast of pineapple flavor. And here you got your dew, like direct energy weapon. And we have these three things trying to gnash their teeth on the sign of Mountain Dew. Now you're going to hear me and see me constantly coming back to San Diego Gas and Electric. This is their helicopter, because they were flying on August 8th and they were flying over a reservoir that I thought was really strange at night. But San Diego Gas and Electric is who I am also mixing in with this whole red flag event, the red flag 23-3. And Lockheed. I'm also going to be throwing Lockheed in with this. So real quickly here, looking at SDG&E, so SDG&E, San Diego Gas and Electric, here's their numbers. 106, you turn that around, take out that 0, it's your 91 or 19. And here's your 35, which is the same thing as the red flag, but backwards, because that's red flag equals 53. SDG&E equals 35, but when you still add the 5 plus 3, we still have the 8. And I've showed this before too. The red flag is 23-3. When you reduce everything, you've got the red flag is 53, and the 23-3 is also 53. And when you reduce it, it ends up being 8-8, and that is the day, August 8th, that Maui burned. And here we have the 53s, and 53 on the right there. It's also cooked. It's also a mark, concealed, and a plan. So I think that those are kind of relative and relevant and sort of interesting. But also I wanted to look at San Diego Gas and Electric because the numerology is also interesting. 574, 1170, and 195. So here is some of the numerology and the words that match up with San Diego Gas and Electric. It's still sacrifice flesh. They love their food. And also, you know how like coronavirus is carnivorous. And it's also trident spear. And also September 9th, which I think is sort of interesting. It's also Klaus Martin Schwab, the exact same numerology as him, and he's heads of the WEF, the World Economic Forum, who's trying to take over the world. But when we look at trident spear, which is equivalent to the San Diego Gas and Electric, I'm just going to have you read this. The word trident comes from the French trident, which in turn comes from Latin tridens or tridentus. Tri is 3, and dentus is teeth, so 3 teeth. So it also says derived from Sanskrit meaning triple spear. And so when we see the trident and the 3 teeth here, you got 3 sets of teeth going on on top of the Mountain Dew, mashing it with the dew with a blast of pineapple flavor, Maui bursts. It's kind of like they knew what was coming. So I find this interesting. In ancient Rome, in a parody of fishing, tridents were famously used by a type of gladiator called a retiarius or net fighter, like internet, net fighter, or web. Traditionally pitted against a securtor and cast a net to wrap his adversary and then used the trident to kill him. Now this says the U.S. Navy Special Warfare insignia worn by members of the U.S. Navy SEALs contains a trident representing the three aspects, sea, air, land, of SEAL Special Operations. And I've showed that Navy SEAL, that Lockheed actually owned the building. It's a government building that Lockheed owned, but it says Navy, it was Navy SEALs Foundation. And this is that logo. And you've got what looks to me like a visor, which I described earlier, if I'm going to show that whole video. And this is October 23rd, 2017. They said the Navy SEAL Foundation announces new permanent office space in Coronado, California. Coronado, when you look at the anagram, is Do Corona, or if you want to just go by how it sounds, Do Corona. So San Diego Gas and Electric is also, some of the numerological like equivalents is Phoenix coin, tip of the spear, September 9th, that would be 9/9, and graphene oxide. What have people been finding in those needle crafts for the past 3 years? Well, there's graphene oxide because it's high conductivity, so it gets people easily connected to the internet. So again, the U.S. Navy Special Warfare insignia, the trident represented three aspects, sea, air, and land, sea, air, and land. And if you look at the SDG&E logo, here it is a little bit bigger. Keep this in mind. This is the golden colored crest of the United States Naval Academy, depicts a trident running vertically in its background. I don't know, I also see here like an OK sign. So there's your 666. Here's a V. Here's a trident, and to me the tip of the tail of the, like a devil tail or blue devil, but we'll get back to that. It says, parallel to its fishing origins, the trident is associated with Poseidon. Now, if anyone's been watching my videos, you know that Poseidon is also an anagram for poisoned, the poisoned adventure, the Poseidon adventure, which is pretty much what we're dealing with right now. So the god of the sea in Greek mythology, because they love their mythology, because myth is basically a lie. The Roman god Neptune, and Shiva, a Hindu god. In Greek myth, Poseidon used his trident to create water sources. My God, sorry about that, my dog's snoring. Water sources, which I've showed you the church committee was talking about poisoning the water in Greece, and the horse by striking a camel. The thing with horse, if you go and look at any, if you're watching any Netflix shows, you will see a horse in almost every show now. You'll see it in the background, statues of it, real horses, paintings, you'll see it somehow. Look in the background, you'll always see them putting a horse in the movies. And I've just noticed that in probably the last, I don't know, 8 or 9 months, maybe a little bit more. Poseidon, as well as being god of the sea, was also known as the earth shaker. Now, California just had an earthquake recently during Hurricane Hillary. When he struck the earth in anger, there's your I-R-E, he caused mighty earthquakes, and he used his trident to stir up tidal waves, tsunamis, and sea storms. We talked about the storms, but one more thing about the storms. Remember I discussed the storm breaker, and there's your 53, and we're dealing with the storm. And the storm breaker is also called a glide bomb, which is I'm gobbled, like I'm eaten, like a Jeffrey Dahmer scenario. It's also metaverse, which is serve meat. And again, the stakeholders who are who the companies in these private public partnerships answer to, always the stakeholders, but they're steak, S-T-E-A-K, like something you eat. And of course we have that which is carnivorous. So also this says the Roman god Neptune and Shiva, a Hindu god. Now the area that I've seen all this activity, the strange flying, like plane and helicopter pattern flying all around these areas lately, and doing figure eights. On August 8th they're doing figure eights in this area. But again, here's the Coronado right here, and all these are Lockheeds. These red areas is Lockheed, 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 and Lockheed. It's almost like this whole area is surrounding where all that airplane activity has been going on the last couple years. And because so much of it has been going on in Chula Vista, I looked at Chula Vista's anagram. And Chula Vista is a Shiva cult. So a Shiva cult, and Shiva is known as the destroyer within the Trimurti, and the Trimurti in Hinduism is the triad of the three gods Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. The Trimurti collapses the three gods into a single form with three faces. And the company that owns San Diego Gas and Electric is Sempra. There's their logo, of a little person trying to run away in a ring of fire, but there's Sempra, and the anagram for that is remaps, like what they're doing to Maui. They're kind of remapping everything. You burn it down and build it back up. Build back better. And the anagram for San Diego, by the way, and the reason why I'm showing this part is because I think San Diego is getting ready to get attacked by either the DEW weapons, some fire thing, and I think San Diego Gas and Electric and the military have something big to do with it, and Lockheed. And there's one other company that I think has something to do with it. But San Diego, the anagrams for that is also agonized and diagnosed. I wonder if they're going to start diagnosing people coming up pretty soon, and then they're going to come up with some solution that's going to make them be in agony. The anagram for Sempra Energy, Sempra being the company that owns SDG&E, it's menage priors. So domestic establishment is a menage, and then priors is prize. So basically they spy on you and your domestic in your home. They watch you, just like, I've got a dog snoring again, sorry. What do you think the smart meters are doing? It's totally prying. It's prize. It's basically violating your Fourth Amendment right. One quick strange little thing, when I looked at this helicopter and who owned it before San Diego Gas and Electric got a hold of it, it was registered under Universal Business and Accounting, Inc., and they were in Florida, and there's their exact address. It was 1995 West Commercial Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33309. And Florida happens to be the home of the Shriners, by the way. There's their phone number. Of course, you have a 19. But when I looked at the Sky Eagle Aviation Academy, because that's also what came up at that address. So you have Sky Eagle Aviation and the Universal Business and Accounting, Inc. But right above it was Banyan Air Service. And isn't that kind of weird? Because if anyone knows about the Maui thing, that banyan tree that was on fire, it was like very, very symbolic for them. People are really concerned that it was going to get burnt down. But it was a gift given to Maui from India. So going up again and looking at San Diego Gas and Electric, that's SDG&E logo, when I just look at their logo, this reminds me of earth, wind, and fire. And when you look at that, when we just look at the words, there's fire is the top, wind is in the middle, and earth is on the bottom. But look at that. When you look at the W, look at this. What is this? Look at WEF, earth, wind, and fire. Earth, wind, and fire. And guess what? When I went to go look at earth, wind, and fire, it looks like World Economic Forum. That's the WEF, which is few. The WEF wants to make fewer of us. This is their logo, what they have. The best of Earth, Wind, and Fire. It's like the phoenix, and you've got those crosses. And remember, the anagrams are not the anagrams, but the gematria for San Diego Gas and Electric is Phoenix Coin. Look at that, Phoenix Coin. I mean, doesn't this look like a coin to you? On a record album from a long time ago. And when I did look at the anagram for San Diego Gas and Electric, it's RECS-IT, like Information Technology Genocidal Agenda. So REX, IT, Genocidal Agenda, but I didn't know what the REX was, RECS. Oh, it's also hydrogel, by the way, hydrogel too. Tip of the spear. What do you put on spears? That poison dart thing you can just put on a tip of a spear. But REC is a Renewable Energy Certificate, or REC, pronounced REC, or like wreck, like the WRECK, like a car wreck, is a market-based instrument that represents the property rights to the environmental, social, and other non-power attributes of renewable electricity generation. RECs are issued when 1 megawatt hour of electricity is generated and delivered to the electricity grid from a renewable energy resource. Sorry, my camera's being really weird. Yesterday when I was trying to videotape this, my camera literally, it said something like terminal, I don't know, whatever, it just died for no reason. But anyhow, under RECs, it includes several data attributes, including certificate data, all these kinds, tracking system ID. It just lists all this stuff. RECs, renewable facility location, nameplate, project name, project vintage. I was just kind of interested in some of these, and I looked at this certificate unique identification number, and I looked further into that. So this unique item identifier means a set of data elements marked on items that is globally unique and unambiguous. And we know what that means. It means not open to more than one interpretation. That means you know for sure, like someone's fingerprints are unambiguous. You can tell that's that person. The term includes a concatenated, how do you say that? Concatenated. This is concatenated conation. It's whatever, stringing end to end, like snow as in ball and snowball. It's like formal, technical. Linking things together in a chain or a series. That's what I'm trying to do with all my random information. But they have concatenated unique item identifier, or a DoD, that's Department of Defense, recognized unique identification. I wonder if the shots gave people that equivalent. Unique identifier means any identifier that is assigned to a data subject. You're a data subject, by the way, just to let you know. And is used by a responsible party. Yeah, when does that ever happen, when things don't fall into the wrong hands? For the purposes of the operations of that responsible party, and that uniquely identifies that data subject in relation to that responsible party. So basically, they're supposed to be able to track you, and they're supposed to not abuse that, which never happens. They always abuse their power. And by the way, the General Data Protection Regulation, which is GDPR, is a European law that went into effect on May 25th, 2018, and establishes protections for privacy and security of personal data about individuals in European Economic Area, that's the EEA, based operations in certain non-EEA organizations that process personal data of individuals in the EEA. And guess what? The EEA consists of all these other countries, and guess what else? It's a club, and we're not in it because the United States isn't part of it. So under GDPR, personal data refers to any information that relates to an identified or identifiable natural person, that's us, an individual, not a company or other legal entity, otherwise known as data subject. So you're a data subject, and you can be tracked and traced, and you're not protected by this GDPR thing. And just like if you send out a letter or email or something, your IP address is also captured and you can be identified through that. And here, this is going on, Brown University. This is in the United States, but we don't get the rights to it. So GDPR and human subjects research at Brown. It says activities involving the transfer of personal data collected under the GDPR from an EEA country to a non-EEA country like the US. So basically the US does not acknowledge the GDPR. Consent must be explicit. If the consent form or consent script serves multiple purposes, e.g. a consent form that is also the recruitment email, then the request for consent must be clearly distinguishable. They do not recognize that in the United States. So as a United States citizen, you don't get those same considerations. Anyhow, more gematria for the San Diego Gas and Electric. We already mentioned Phoenix Coin, Rex, IT, genocidal agenda, because they can track and trace you. They can identify you, like when you're under those LED lights, if you've been needle crafted, maybe even if you haven't, maybe even if you're eating the food that's been tainted with the hydrogel and the graphene oxide. It's just tip of the spear, and they are murderers. These are all the same numerology, 574 for San Diego Gas and Electric. But I just think it's interesting when you look at San Diego Gas and Electric's logo. You have the bottom earth, you've got this wind and the fire, equals being FWE is D or WEF, as in the World Economic Forum. And most of us have already heard about Klaus Schwab, executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. But just going on to Lockheed's page, they show these DO weapons. They show a bunch. They show people, helicopters and aircraft like F-16s, and they're all spraying out these little kind of subtle, weird sort of energy. Almost looks like water jets, but they're not. They're just like supposedly showing like energy weapons. But so they have this, and then look how it looks so close to the Chapman University logo, which Chapman is totally involved in the whole needle crafting, and Pacific Bell is too. The whole these whole Bell people, the whole telephone communications companies are so corrupt. Like this Craig McCaw, who McCaw Cellular Communications, who buddied up with Bill Gates for the whole satellite thing. Look at this, how Craig McCaw pioneered the wireless age. Basically pioneered your demise. And you know the funny thing about this, let's see who wrote this, I can't remember, I'm sorry, OKC Core. What's interesting about this, money from thin air, look at all the money that's been made over this last 3 years, and it's like the whole I can't breathe thing, thin air, that's caused by all these cell towers. That's why they call them cell towers. Cells, they affect your cells, this radiation and the microwaving that's happening to you. Anyhow, when I'm looking back at this whole area, let me go show you some of the activity in the planes that we've seen here, and I just feel like they're getting ready to really target San Diego for a big, like Maui 2. You know, they love their sequels. I mean, we have our own Paradise 2 here. We have those. They love going after Paradise. It looks like Paradise in California. Here's a little Paradise. They hit Maui. What's next? And remember, I showed you on our naval Coronado, where we have our naval people. Here's this naval amphibious base. Remember, I showed you this? When you zoom in, this is on the Coronado Island off the Silver Strand. Isn't that interesting? And back to that 151st Air Refueling Wing. This is their little patch, I guess they have. And look at, there's a beehive for the collective. And there's also the little bolt of lightning in there for like electric. Air Refueling Wing. And in this red flag U.S. Armed Forces, they do talk about the Indo-Pacific, which is where Hawaii is, or Maui was. So also one more thing, they happen to bring up these ethnic groups there. So they say that their food is also influenced from some of their airmen who are from Nigeria. Nigeria is also 151, and there's your 63, just upside down, 93 as in dilemma. But Nigeria, it's also for the anagram, is AI rain, like AI controls everything. And they just happen to be the 151st Air Refueling Wing, like air, like money from thin air. Yeah, the title of that book is Money from Thin Air, the story of Craig McCaw, the visionary who invented the cell phone industry, and his next billion-dollar idea, which went back with working with Bill Gates. And if I put my earlier video on part of this, you'll see that. But I cut this really short. I mean, this is long, but I cut it shorter. Yeah, they worked together to team up to form Teledesic. And again, if I just don't add the other part of this video, I did mention DARPA, and they had a freeze-dried patent. And this is DARPA's long shot UAV concept. Long shot, and it shows these little weapon things I showed earlier. And I shared earlier in this article about the DARPA launching UAV, deploying air to air. And when you look at the letters UAV, it's 901, there's your 19, if you're 91, if you look upside down, there's your 44. And here's your Pineapple Party, which is 901, and there's your Maui, which is 44, you know, the Pineapple Blast. And also going back to these little pineapple meat eaters, and the word Nigeria, it's mRNA, code red, and campaign are another couple numerical equivalents. I just think it's weird how they're always so into food. Elevating dining experiences at the 151st FFS sustainment flight. So talking about their food and stuff too, they're talking about procuring, acquisitions and procurements, and also they talk about, especially when you're barbecuing and doing meats on your holiday meals, bringing in that extra kick that you want in good food. So eat it when it's still pretty raw and rare, like pink. One of the comments made is, how can we create better quality food for the customers coming in? How do we put a spark in the airmen to want to cook better quality food? Now they're talking about food here right now and menus, so remember that when you're listening to this. But it says, a lot of thought and planning goes completing the section's mission and training, but also asks the question, how was that airman's experience? So we're embracing the food that we can cook. Sustainment services, flight, dining facility manager, we really wanted to give and provide an experience, not just the dining hall or in the dining room here, but throughout anything we touch. And one more, through the planning and the dedication of the airmen of the food section sustainment flight, you might just have an opportunity to enjoy the passion and flavor of a bacon wrapped chicken cordon bleu. Talks more and more about that, but when I saw bacon, it reminds me of sow, and sow, when you look at the anagram, is OWS, as in Operation Warp Speed, which goes back to D-Day, the beginning of the end. General Perna. Anyhow, those UAV shots they talk about, it's envisioned that long shot will increase the survivability of manned platforms by allowing them to be standoff ranges far away from enemy threats, while an air-launched long-shot UAV efficiently closes the gap to take more effective missile shots, DARPA added. Remember, like all these, that's normal. So I don't know if I'm going to get around to showing that video I've done, but regarding this on the Coronado Island, the naval base, where the Lockheed was located, and Lockheed is also the Navy SEALs Foundation, which is located right there on Coronado Island. I just sometimes look at storybooks, like the stories that we were raised with, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears here, because they always use three, like the trident, they always use three, like Three Little Pigs, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Goldilocks and the Three Bears, when you look at the anagram, is Lockheed's board, Hitler's agents. And it doesn't seem that far from the truth when you look at what's on these our military islands. The naval base. Look, there's your 71. If you turn that upside down, it's 17. When you spell 17 out, it's NWO, as in New World Order. And this is Lockheed's own page, and they are very proud of their lasers. And so I'm just becoming a little concerned about the San Diego area. Here's another perspective, kind of looking southwest on the amphib base here. If you get real close, there's the same building, different perspective. I mean, how come they wouldn't have changed that? Oh yeah, and one other company that's a big concern is all this Acropolis West Design Space Center. They're also government, like they have a lot of government contracts too, military government contracts, and they're minority owned. Oh yes, and have you seen Lockheed? One of the businesses in Lockheed, the one more north here, this is the Miramar base, but right here is Lockheed Martin off the 15805 163. This is their building, and this is Jeffrey Epstein's little building on St. James. And remember what Lockheed Martin, what their anagram was? Children meet okay. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a couple shots of some flights that I've captured, and one of my reasons for concern is these are just going overhead. This is U.S. Army. This is August 8th. There's your Paradise Hills. Here was a company called Coastal Defense that I called, this was August 17th, 2021. It's been going on for that long. These are the flight patterns that they flew, and I called them and they agreed. They admitted, and I even have that on record. I have a video of this. They said that they were doing government contracts, but they couldn't tell us what it was that they were doing. And it's actually 345 miles of flying back and forth. This was their tail number registration, N3271X, Coastal Defense. It was a plane. But I mean, look how long they fly overhead. 9:58 to 7:21. People are having to put up with this. This is a couple of years ago, just going around and around for days at a time. I mean, what are they doing? Besides spying on everyone or poisoning them, who knows? But it's right there, the same area that all these other flights have been happening. In the middle of Lockheed's locations. Oh, I'm not going to forget about San Diego Gas and Electric, by the way, because this is Jeffrey W. Martin, Chairman and CEO of Sempra, and he is involved with the World Economic Forum. He was in the United States Military Academy at West Point. He has a law degree as well, and he also supports the Monarch School of San Diego, a public K-12 school exclusively for students who are homeless, at risk of being homeless, or impacted by homelessness. So basically they don't have anyone really watching over them or protecting them. Big problem there. In 2020, he was named Chief Executive of the Year, so you know he's doing something to make them happy. And here's on that Coastal Defenses, that's the manager of them. He was ex-military too. This was on his page. Special Operations Weather, by the way. You got your electric bolts. You got the globe. Anyhow, there's parachuting. But he was the one flying overhead, and they're souped up militarized planes. This was a U.S. Navy flight. To me, it looked like a Baphomet head. I think I've shared that before. I don't think that's by accident. Now this is a flight. This almost looks like a partridge in a pear tree, but this was Share Aviation group that had this. The tail registration, where'd it go? Sorry, is in 892SA, and they said that it was PG&E who was doing all this grid pattern. And then the next day I called, and that lady completely changed her story. And then I even called San Diego Gas and Electric, and they confirmed that they were doing flights with PG&E. This is part of some operation they were doing. And then the next day they were saying that it was just for vector control. So that flight was on April 9th of 2021. For an hour and 47 minutes they were doing that. Share Aviation Group changing their story. Here's another flight pattern over Chula Vista. Same thing, round and round in circles. Again by them. Here's another flight pattern I documented. Fruitdale's a little bit south of this. It's like right in this area. Here's another flight pattern just a little bit more east. There's the water just a little bit more east of those other circles you saw. Right over the 805 and E. So this is right over the Bonita, East Lake Chula Vista area. Now here's the San Diego Police Department. They actually make it look like a uterus, but these are multiple days, couple hours at a time. Here's that Coastal Defense. They had a Gen 5, it's called. A Gen 5, it's a lightning pod. Lightning pod, that's for tracking people and picking up information on your phones. Here was another time someone was just flying overhead around circles for hours at a time. That's a video. Just circles around and around and around. This was another flight. And this was 2021, November 17th. So it's 2021. There's all your ones. See all your ones? It's kind of interesting. So here are just some highlight defense companies in San Diego. Just a few of them. It's quite a bit, especially if they want to use their energy weapons. So here's September 1st. I just wrote 9-1, and it's brace and map. And remember that remap was the anagram, and famine. This is weird. So if I just put Sep first, there's your L Elon. It's funny because it's 88, as in August 8. It's also Killary, which is sort of weird. Oh, which is also 88. And there's your Phoenix coin again. Same thing, same numerology as September 1st. See, there's your 574. San Diego Gas and Electric is the same as 574, which is the same as the Phoenix coin, which is the Earth, Wind, and Fire. So there's your September 1st, 662, 1050, and 175, and into the storm. So 662 is their common denominator. Anyhow, so I'll let this go, but it's just remember the song by Earth, Wind, and Fire. It's called September, and in these lyrics they talk about the 21st night of September. I was thinking, what if I've got a wrong calendar? Like, what if they're using another calendar? And you know that song by Earth, Wind, and Fire called September? They mention September 21 in that song. And so I asked this, like, what would be the Gregorian, in the Gregorian calendar, when would September 21st, 2023 be? It said, in this answer, it said that Hydri, I don't know how you say that, Hydri or Hydri, I don't know, date, 6/3/1445. So that kind of makes sense about all the 6/3 and 36 and 93 that we're seeing. And I'm always thinking it's Thelema. But it corresponds to the Gregorian date of Thursday, September 21st, 2023. So there's your 6/3. That kind of answers a lot for me. And it says too, The solar calendar date corresponds to 30 Sunbola, Virgo, 1401, which all occur on one single day. That's a Thursday. And sorry, I don't know enough about calendars. I'm just sharing what I'm reading. Interesting though, the date, the numbers there. So here's September 21st. That would be 9/21, deathly plagues. But if any of you have done your homework, you know that that's not true. It doesn't happen that way. Our bodies are much stronger than what they're wanting us to believe. As long as you don't let them inject you with anything. Okay? So be strong. Anyhow, we'll see what happens. And don't drink that crap, just to let you know. Don't do it. Hey guys, I'm adding this information also right here. This is today, August 25th. This again is the SDG&E helicopter, and it again is flying over Loveland Reservoir right now, or let's see, earlier at 2:06 p.m., so a couple hours ago. This is the pattern. It almost reminds me of when I mentioned the red flag military exercises, and all of a sudden on August 8th they put out a news thing about it where they hadn't before. We'll replay real quick and see what they do here. They'll probably do the same maneuvers that they did here on August 8th. But look how less involved this is. It's almost like they're just doing it just to say, yeah, we do it all the time. It's no big deal. It has nothing to do with the 8th. Or another possibility is just for 38 minutes actually just did this maneuver so it wouldn't show up. It would push down the dates. See now the August 8th doesn't show anymore. So you only get so many logs in. You know, that's why earlier today this was showing the August 8th flight. Yep, they're pushing all the information down now so you can't really track them. How convenient for them. This is another flight tracker that now doesn't show the August 8th flight. So something's really suspicious to me because normally you have a lot more. I've shown you guys before where you see a whole like 2 weeks of schedules. And this is interesting about the power outages. See this map with the red? Look at that and let's see what Lockheed looks like. So here's Lockheed's little map pattern, and it's interesting because they're missing 2 off to the east. But anyhow, that's just to let you know, it's interesting how the power outages are kind of close to Lockheed. And the 2 Lockheeds are not showing you is to the east where that hand is. And I look at the time, and then I look at some things that go with the word Loveland Dam, which is September is one of the gematria. So is Markville, and so is Invasion. But look at this, the gematria for Loveland Dam is exactly like M killer V. M killer V is the exact same gematria. It's also mRNA vaccine or overdose. So when I see, it's also swastika. When I see them flying over reservoirs, and this isn't the only one, they did one earlier today actually, the Otay Lakes, they just flew over it. They weren't above it as actively as they were this, but I'm just wondering why are they always around the water? So it's a little concerning, but anyhow, I'm gonna get in here, and again, I just want to remind everyone, I don't have a phone, I have to borrow them, and so you know, all my phones have been shut down, my computers, my supposedly the car insurance or something like was questioned, or so there's some really kind of weird things. The power went out. There's some kind of weird things going on. Anyhow, I think the Earth, Wind, and Fire is kind of interesting. Okay, I want to show you one more thing. Remember, I don't have a pause on this, so I'm sorry. So the U.S. Senate Subcommittee on Intelligence and Rights of Americans of the Select Committee on Intelligence, these are the church committee hearings. This specific topic was on unauthorized storage of toxic agents, the church committee hearing volume 1. And when I go to look at the word venom, just take note. They talk about shellfish, but here's cobra venom. venom, cobra venom, cobra venom, cobra venom. I mean, it's all throughout. See the amount of markings that they have that they mention the venom. So, and toxins. So just notice that venom, and here's the venom very specifically, the crate, lethal snake venom. So when you look at the church hearing meetings, oh, okay, I find it very interesting that every time I try to share this part, it's my computer, the phone, everything shuts down. But so I'm going to do it really quickly here. Again, we're in the church committee hearing meetings. They talk about the vulnerability of the drinking water, and they tried to do a federal like a covert biological attack, and they just basically showed that, first of all, they take the chlorine out of the water so dioflagenates can I don't know, get into the water and possibly contaminate it or something, but also they proved that they can put very easily introduce toxins into these multi-story buildings and the pipelines, and they talked about circulating chilled drinking water system, but it doesn't have to be a circulating like a chilled drinking water system. It can just be any pipes. So that's something that they were very, very I'm having a hard time getting this part out. So the poisoning of the water seems that it's very, very doable. And this was part of the hearings. And I actually brought this up in one of the Sweetwater Authority meetings. I think it was September 6th and September 9th, 2 years or 3 years ago, right during the whole pandemic thing. So anyhow, they can totally put toxins in the water. But if you know, only just don't take the injections. That's where you're going to get in real trouble. They love the 55 here, but the piping network they talk about, remember Sweetwater Authority had a lot of pipeline projects, and that anagram is inject people, RIP, and I thought that was quite interesting. But here, sorry about this, but when we look at the word venom, it's also, look at that, Rise of the Phoenix. The 414 is interesting to me because 414 is also Mayday. And remember that 414, when we were looking at the Air Combat Command and the red flag event thing, the 414 was the, I don't know, that Winterbottom guy, the Colonel Winterbottom.